come next week, and she's going to do a revisited. And so I think it's going to be pretty interesting. She's very, very enthusiastic about this process. It's especially good for millennials and, those of us people haven't gotten stuck yet. So, of course, the salad is at 6 and the program is at 7. So that is our announcements. Okay, I'm the entire show tonight, by the way, except for Paul. So this whole thing about illusion and reality. I mean, how many people, how often do you hear, oh, it's just an illusion? This isn't real. It doesn't, and how many people, when you hear the word illusion, immediately say, well, if it's an illusion, it doesn't mean anything? Anybody have that? It's an illusion. So if it's an illusion, okay, Gordon. For a lot of people, though, I mean, I was sitting in a class one day, and a woman sort of was blurting out some stuff that was going on with her, and then she says, but it's all an illusion. And in that moment, what I saw was a woman who was just she wasn't, I can't even think of the word, she just wasn't giving herself credit for being who she was, and she was just, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. She was devaluing herself. She was devaluing her feelings because she's saying, well, it's an illusion. And so what she was trying to do was, I think, soothe herself and say, it's all going to change and go away. But the way she said it, I thought, wow, doesn't see any value in this, and she's, so that's what got the bee in my bonnet about talking about how we use the word illusion. So obviously, like, how many people were here last month? Oh, quite a few of you, okay. So we will end up with questions and discussion again. But I was thinking about this, and I thought, okay, some people were telling me they wanted to do a little more work on denial and affirmation as well, and I think I figured out a way to combine them tonight. So, because really, when I was thinking about it, denial and affirmation is a technique to help us determine what it is we really want. It's a way for us to make a choice. And we use denial to remove thought power from something, and we use affirmation to empower our thought. And that's on your sheet, by the way. So tonight is real about gaining insight into how you perceive reality and how you perceive illusion as well. So is there for me, the word illusion is saying that it's not important, it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything. That's what my brain does with it. And maybe some other people do or don't. Now, Course in Miracles uses illusion. Don Miguel Ruiz tells us that this is a dream. Quantum physics says that there is absolutely nothing outside our heads, that there's nothing out here, it's just what I'm perceiving. And when you really think about that, then it really is kind of hard to figure out what we're doing here and why. Right? Okay, you guys can speak up. This is just... So, as I talk, every one of you is hearing something different. You're hearing the same words that I'm saying, but everybody is hearing it just a little bit differently. And so, which one is the illusion and which one is real? Which words? You can really get yourself into something when you're doing this. So I was thinking again about what if we change our vocabulary? And what if we take a different approach? So here are some definitions, and Jeannie's got the microphone, so I'll let her go around, but I'm going to give you some of the definitions that I have for both of these words, and then I'm curious to see if you have any other difference. So reality is that which never changes, and of course we use the word reality. There's truth, there's God, spirit, the silence. Those are all terms for reality. Illusion is that which changes. It's the reality with a little r. It's illusion, it's the dream, nothingness, circumstances, or facts. What other words would you use for this? Kathy's back there.
For illusion, I would use the word perception.
Okay. Anybody else?
think of the story, and there's something underneath that. The story is the illusion.
Claudia?
What appears to be real?
Okay, so it's the stuff that we're doing every day, this that seems to mean so much all the time.
I believe we create our own reality, and a lot of times what we think is illusion is real, and what we think is real could be illusion.
That's true. That's true. Other
When I think of illusions, I think of like hallucinations mostly. That's on the one great end of it. And when I think of reality, because there's so many different, everybody has it, but actual is the word I use instead of reality.
actual, that's a good word. Okay?
When I think of illusion, I think of perception, but to me it has more of a, like an ethereal negative connotation, like something that it may be true, but it may be not true, you don't know, and, but it has more of a negative in that it's not real.
Well, I mean, even the way, and well, Claudia, the way it's often said, well, that's just an illusion. I mean, it's often said with that tone of voice, yes.
I think of as a mirage because it appears to be, and then it's negative maybe because it was there, now they're taking it away.
Oh, some mirages can be beautiful. So, yeah.
Illusion is imagination.
Okay. Okay. Pam?
I think of illusion as being entangled with ego, what you want to see or what you need.
What you want to see.
Think you need,
Okay.
and not
Okay.
what's real in essence.
So what is reality? Whoops.
Everything is not illusion.
Thank you. We can all go home now. We've solved it. Okay.
Reality is what we think of. Reality is concrete. It's what we think we see.
Okay.
It's like, you know, yeah.
Okay. And so what you just said is that, you can go ahead and sit down, Jeannie. So these teachings, like any of the teachings, is that what we think we see is actually an illusion too. The only thing that's real, according to metaphysical teachings, is that which never, ever, ever changes, which is the soul, which is God. So that's the reality with the big R. I mean, and I'm just telling you the teaching, what it feels like to you, and that's why we have these, I bring these things up when we have these conversations, is that you look real, the chair you're sitting on is real, and yet the teachings say this is all a dream. And that's where it's no wonder we're confused. You know, and we have these conversations and we do these teachings. So one of the ways that we can look at this is this material world is an expression of the one creative energy. And so this world is a symbol. Everything here is a symbol. This body that I'm walking around in is a symbol of the Deborah energy that's coming through. That's the symbol of Jeannie energy. Technically, that's probably the symbol of a chair. They're symbols. All of the words I'm using are symbols. When you read words on a page, you're reading symbols, right? And we give meaning to the symbols. But the symbols themselves don't have any meaning. Is that helping? Probably not. But it's all, yes, Jeannie.
Oh, in Buddhist terminology, they call it relative and absolute.
Okay, relative and absolute.
That helps at
Okay.
all.
So absolute never changes. And relative is that which changes. Because when you think about your life and the stuff that's going on, almost none of it, well, death is permanent, but almost all the other stuff is not permanent. It all changes. Everything changes. You get up in the morning and your shoestring breaks and the day starts out kind of like whatever, and then it gets better, and then it gets, everything is constantly changing. And that's the illusion that we're talking about. The part that's in you, if you can stop at any point during the day, in the middle of all those things going on, if you can stop and get quiet and go within, you can find that thing that's always there and never, ever, ever changes. And that's what, in the most technical terms, we consider the absolute or reality. And so the rest of this, rather than illusion, I like the word symbols because it's like, this is the symbol of me being out in the world. There is another part of inside me that is calm, quiet, collected, never gets upset, is neutral, none of which am I in my waking life. But here's something that Alice Bailey wrote about this, and it might help. It says that our bodies are the physical symbol of the universal soul. It is the outer and visible sign of an inner reality, the concentration of the sensitive response entity which links spirit and matter. So our souls are actually the link between the absolute and the relative. How are you guys doing out there? So if I think of this as this body is a symbol, the words I use are a symbol. The thoughts I have are actually symbols because it starts with pure thought that has no expression. And then it comes down into our minds. And then we think we have to do something with it, and most often we do. And we're turning it into words, and we turn it into pictures, and we turn it into things that we bring out into the world. And there's a lot of times where people say, well, that's the illusion. It's not permanent. I can paint a picture. It's great, it's wonderful, but it's not permanent. So it's not an illusion, it's real to us. And the emotions and the feelings that we have with all of those things, those are real too. They're not permanent though. Even when, someone dies, we go through that grieving process, but most people, and not all, but most people get to a point where they can come to terms with that and they don't have, as much of an emotional reaction or whatever. It changes. It keeps moving and it keeps changing. So I think of emotions and feelings as symbols too. It's a symbol of what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. Ira, do we have Zelda, or did she not get on a? Could we look at Zelda? No. There's a picture of Zelda that's going to come up in just a minute. I don't know how well you can see her. It's this little tortoiseshell kitty. She showed up on our porch on Saturday, covered in leaves and cobwebs and crying, skinny, terrified. And so we are now a 3-cat household. My other 2 cats are seriously not happy. So we're doing a process. And we brought her in, and I realize now that we talked about taking her down to the SPCA. There's something wrong with her back legs, and she can walk, but I doubt very seriously if she would have been considered adoptable, so I don't think that she would have survived. So we saved this kitty, and everybody's going, "Aw, how cute," unless you really don't like cats, and then you're still probably going, "Aw, how cute," in this case. But she became another symbol for me over the last few days because we have a great cage for her, and she's safe from the cats. But she's in there, and she's alone for quite a while at a time. And I got sick to my stomach because she was abandoned, and she was alone, and I realized that I was making her a symbol of my own stuff. I made what was going on with her a symbol of my own issues around being trapped somewhere. It's like I can't even do a yoga class. Being trapped in a room for an hour and a half is like, no, I can't do that. She's in that cage. She's alone a lot of the time. And then every once in a while, cats go by and hiss at her. they're not in there all the time. We're doing this gradually. But I realized that I made her into a symbol of some of my own inner pain. And she's taught me a lot in the last couple of days. It was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize I had some of those feelings, but I do. And she's also very much a symbol of love and affection. She's just a little sweetie, and she just if you pick her up and she turns into a refrigerator, she just purrs all the time. But for a few days, she was a symbol for me of suffering. And I watched her this morning playing with this little stupid black mouse. She's not suffering at all. She's got all the food she needs. She's safe. She's warm. She's happy. She gets belly rubs. But and so which one, what was the truth there? Was she a symbol of love and happiness and all that, or was she a symbol of suffering? I'm the one who did that. I made her, and I still look at her and, because then I think about how miserable she had to be for God knows. It's like you can make these stories up, and you can take the story and make it this huge symbol of happiness or joy or pain and suffering. And that's where I think it's important to think in terms of is this something that can change? Is this permanent? Is it an illusion in terms of, is this something that I'm stuck with? And there's truly nothing on this planet that we're actually stuck with. There might be things that we don't like and we'd like to change, but are we really stuck? So that's what I was thinking about in terms of illusion, is that we use that word so much that I think, for me, it doesn't have a lot of meaning. And when it does have meaning for me, it's that negative, well, that's just an illusion. It doesn't mean anything. And our feelings and emotions do mean something. They mean a lot to us. Whether we get stuck in them, it's what we do with them. I think that's the most important. But let's see, what else did I do here? Pardon?
Hard dealing with loss, like if you got attached to this kitty you found, or kitten, or cat, I don't know how old.
She's 7 weeks.
7 weeks. And then all of a sudden you have to give her up after you get to like her and she likes you, and then there's the attachment.
Right, and there's that separation again. Yeah.
Separation.
Yeah, we're going to keep her, but yeah, and then we'll keep her for 14 years and she'll go away, and that'll be, but none of those are, the feeling is real, but that's not a permanent, it's not a permanent situation. Yeah, it should be permanently gone, but my feelings about it, and she's, and what is she? She's a symbol. I'm a symbol to her. And we're playing this thing here. We're walking around, we're materializing, we're becoming form here, and then we do all these things, and it does have meaning. I think that's the most important thing for me to talk about with people, is that we can say it's an illusion, but we can't say it doesn't mean anything in the greater sense. And I believe Rick, who does, in the kitchen, we had a conversation once, and we came to, everything means everything, and everything means nothing. And it depends on how you're approaching it. If you think about something that's kind of getting on your nerves and bugging you, and then you really stop and think about it, it's like, why am I, what's so important about this? Why am I doing this to myself? And I'm sure nobody in this room has ever done that, but, right? Yeah. So reality is relative. There is an absolute reality, and it's every once in a while when we get to touch it for just a moment, and we sort of remember it, but we get back into the world, and it's like, I know there's something out there. I know there's something that I can feel, but I can't quite get back there. So if we understand that this life is an extension of something, of another vibration, and it's really it's really a frequency, and so it's faster than what we're doing. This chair is vibrating much more slowly than the air. And you think about ice, right? You've got ice, frozen ice, liquid ice, dry ice. They're all forms of water. Which one is the real water and which one is the illusion? It's all water, it's just in different forms. We are all made out of the very same stuff. Everything in this room, the walls, everything is made out of exactly the same material, the same atoms. They're simply arranged themselves differently, or we've, in our minds, have arranged them differently, if you really want to get quantum physics-y, which I don't want to. It's all the same stuff. It's just arranged differently. So if you think about it in terms of symbols, and this is how I've arranged stuff, and whatever. So does any of that help at all? Anybody have any questions? Yes? Please wait for the mic. Thank you.
On the other side, it says illusion, and you said facts. How does that fit with the
Eric
illusion?
Butterworth talks about, Jeannie said that there's absolute and relative. Eric Butterworth, who is a unity minister for years and years, and he's written many, many books, he said he uses the terms, there's truth and there's facts. So the fact, you're sitting here in this room is a fact. The truth is that you're a spiritual being, and you're walking around in a human body. You know, you go outside and you get a flat tire. No, I'm not wishing that on anybody. That flat tire is a fact, but it's not the reality of your life. I keep using the flat tire thing. I have to come up with something different. So he just, you know, it's a fact that people become ill. It's a fact that you have bills to pay. It's a fact that, you know, you have to put food on the table. But none of those are the reality of your being. And so it's really, I think we get very confused about being spiritual beings and still living in the world, and this whole thing of being in the world but not of it. Most of the time we think in terms of, okay, I'm over here, I'm having my spiritual life. Oh, I have to go to work and pay bills. Oh, I'll go have some spiritual life. Oh, I'll go back over here and work and pay bills. And I did that for years until I don't have to work anymore, so I got to sort of start to blend it. But we think in terms of either or. Yes, Kathy.
So I understand what you're saying about truth and fact. But when you use the analogy of the flat tire, okay, I'm having a hard time with that being an illusion because the tire is flat, the car won't go, I can't drive.
It's a fact.
That is a fact.
That's a fact.
But that's not an illusion because it's happening in front of me.
Well, so Eric Butterworth uses that word for instead of illusion. He uses fact. And yes, the fact is, in this material plane, you're right, the car won't go. But I need to find a different analogy, I'm pretty sure. But, okay, if the tire on your car is flat, you don't say, the tire on my car is flat. You say, I have a flat tire. You own it. It becomes your flat tire. And then you're starting to have a flat tire experience. Okay? So everything that comes around is our experience. We're having an experience. So you're having a flat tire experience, and yeah, it is, but you're still a spiritual being. You're still who you are inside, no matter if all four tires are flat. And you're dealing with a fact. You're dealing with a fact of the material world as a spiritual being who's very, very, very much being human in that moment, I'm sure. Does that help? Sort of, yeah, okay. This is not easy stuff. And I have to say that none of what we do here at SLC is easy. None of this choice to walk this particular spiritual path is a difficult one because we ask something, or the teaching asks something of people that a lot don't, and that is to take responsibility for your own life, to be who you are. And we're sort of a self-help in that, or in do-it-yourself church in that respect as well, which is why I do this, so people can ask questions. But this is not easy stuff. So if you feel confused, join the club. Because I was thinking about this one too, and I sort of went, why did I choose this? What was I thinking? Because it's very, very difficult to talk about. Because it's very hard for me to say this is not a solid, real thing. But, the quantum physicist will say there is so much space in this thing that all the molecules and atoms are so far apart. It's stuff I can't even wrap my brain around. And so I turned to the Tao Te Ching. And I found this website that has something like 100 and something different versions of the first chapter. So I chose the one that, I don't know, just spoke to me the most. And you have a copy of this. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the root of all things. Therefore, the subtleties of Tao are always apprehended through their formlessness. The limits of things are always seen through their form. These two, the form and the formless, have the same source but different names. Both of them can be called deep and profound, the deepest and the most profound, the door of all mysteries. And the part about this that is, it's the first two lines, is that you can think about God or whatever name you use for that relationship you have with Spirit. The minute you put a name on it, it gets smaller, right? It's like you're thinking about it and you're in your heart and whatever. And the minute you start to name it and call it something, it coalesces down into this limited, because we're not very good at perceiving unlimited. Our brains don't like that. But the minute you name something, yes, ma'am.
But not really. That's an illusion.
And that's the real illusion, honestly. The illusion is that we are separate from God. That is the illusion. And it's very hard to not feel separate when I'm in this body and Jeannie's in that body and Gordon's in that body, and we're all walking around in these little compact vehicles that we're using. I mean, just that fact, I see something different from me here. I see other over there and other over there. And so, of course, when there's something you can't even see, like God, of course, there's this sense of separation, and that is the real illusion. So thank you. I mean, that, there is no separation, but we are separating all the time. And you have to on this, we have to make decisions. We have to discern. We have to walk around this planet. But knowing that I'm not separate from God, that is the real thing. So I have this little exercise. We have time? Yeah. Okay. And, okay, so this is not, what I'm telling you is not like gospel or what, I totally believe. This is something to think about. This is another way to just start thinking about your relationship to the idea of illusions, the idea of reality. And so I was thinking, if you take a moment to think about something in your life and how you symbolize it, like I did with little Zelda here. What did I turn that into? She became a symbol of some of my stuff. So just take a couple of minutes and think about that. And if you want to play, and you can write it down on your sheet. If it's on the back, there's a place for this. And really just to kind of start a conversation about this and see what comes up for you. Because symbols might not be the word that you would use for this. Pardon? On the back of this, there's a sign that says, take a minute to think about something in your life that you put all kinds of symbols around, like I did the cat. I looked at her and I saw love, affection, and then I saw abandonment and misery and unhappiness. And so I made her a symbol of something else. I was able to bring it back and make her and change that. How do you work with that? If you want to call it illusion, call it something else. But what is your process when you're dealing with something in your life that is a fact that you don't like and you want to change? Just think, just play with it. There's no right or wrong, and never any right or wrong with me. Just a thinking thing. Just another moment. And if you're done, think about the next one is that with this circumstance, if you think about the reality behind that, the reality within you, the absolute, when you start thinking about this situation, how does that change it for you? It's like I realized, that this little kitty is probably a godsend. And I started looking at it very differently. It changed. I went, oh, there's something working on a very deep level here to bring this little creature into my life. And it completely changed my perspective on it. So, what do you do or how do you work with it to change that when you've gotten yourself all illusioned up, so to speak? Okay, just another moment. Okay, so what does that do or not do for you? What is... Mary?
If I'm an illusion, and my children are an illusion, and something I did caused my son to leave my life, where does the reality come in that?
Anybody have an answer for that? Okay. Barrick Butterworth would say those are all facts of your life, and that you're all spiritual beings living your lives and having these experiences. But ultimately, when you are inside yourself, I mean, if you sat in your room, in a room with your son, and you both got really quiet and went into the silence and got in contact with that inner being, that feeling wouldn't be there. That sense of separation would not be there. So even though you perceive that you are separated, because on this material plane you have been, technically we're never separated from each other or from God. I'm not saying it doesn't look like that, and I'm not saying it's not painful, but you know, in quantum physics, they say if two particles come in contact with each other, no matter where those particles go or how far apart they get, they are still connected, that they never lose that connection. So the connection is there. What we're doing with that connection is another matter, what we're doing on this plane. But ultimately, when everybody, you know, when you leave your body and go back to the great farm, you know, I mean, so like I said, this isn't easy stuff to think about.
Due to my accident, my son came back in my life.
Right.
Is that reality or is that illusion?
It's part of that same mechanic. It's like you spent time apart and now you're spending time together. You're connected. The connection never broke. So the connection is the reality. What you're doing with the connection, whether you're standing far apart or whether you're close to each other, whether you're speaking to each other or not, you're still connected. And in fact, when you're not speaking to each other, it's more painful because the connection doesn't get broken. Right? You're still connected. And of course, this is really, really, with family, it's very, very difficult because no matter what, with ex-spouses, and sometimes it's easier to at least, you know, feel like you are no longer connected because you don't have the emotional attachment. And the emotional attachment is, I think, and I've got a couple of Course in Miracles people in the room, but it's just like the emotional attachment is what gets us so wrapped up in things, and that's part of the illusion too, is that our emotions, I believe that our emotions are real, that we really feel them, that they are valid. And maybe the point I'm trying to make here is just because it's not the ultimate reality, it doesn't make it invalid. Your feelings mean something. Your emotions mean something. What you do in your life means something. So to say it's all an illusion, you have to be really careful with that because it is so easy to devalue yourself and devalue your life and say, well, none of it means anything. Whereas if you can say, what this has meaning, what I'm doing is, you know, but there's also another level of being. You know, when I raise my vibration, then I am in connection, or when I go in and get quiet, I feel that connection and I feel calm and I don't have the anxieties and the worries and the whatever that I have in this lifetime. Wait.
To play on what you're saying, it's like we were talking about last Thursday in the group. They're all different facets of the same reality.
Okay.
Like on a gemstone. They're different facets, but it's all the same stone.
Good point. So what is this exercise? Did it help? Did it hurt? Did it confuse? I'm sorry, what?
It's got me going.
Okay.
I didn't bring my glasses, unfortunately. I don't know what I wrote here. It's funny when I feel abandonment, hurtful, sadness, then I forgive, love myself, and love others. And the illusion that I present to myself that is so painful, that I think is real, I can accept what is really happening and give love to it and give love to myself and be with that feeling of pain. And that pain could present love, and the love could overshadow that pain. And as I accept things as they are in the present moment, because things are always changing, then I can be in the presence of love.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Because there's that other teaching. There's either fear or the love, or love or fear. And love is the absolute, and fear is the relative. Because if you get into real love, deep, the love that you feel when you're in that connected place, there's no judgment. You're not thinking about what this love means. You're just in it. But when there's fear going on, your brain's going a mile a minute. Did you have something, Jeannie?
Yeah, mine was something in my life is our house that, last year we had to move because, the landlord was, renovating and everybody else was looking for a place, and so we got a place that we didn't really like. So my symbolism of it up until tonight has
Thank you,
been
Jeannie.
it's a symbol of lack and a failure. I would walk around and it's like, I don't like it. But the reality behind the symbol is it's a house. It's where we are living right now, and we give it meaning, and when we gather, when we invite people over, when we share, then it becomes a home. So.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And that is the way we approach everything. So when we talk about choosing our own reality, and that's reality with a little r. It's the everyday life. The reality, the ultimate reality is another word to phrase that. It's where you are in that spot where there is no judgment, there is no thinking about it. And then the little r reality is when you're thinking about it a lot. Yes, Mary?
There's a Hafiz poem called A Cushion for Your Head that talks about how separation from God is the hardest work in the world. And the poem talks about, having the person rest, get a cushion for the head and a tray of things to eat, because you've been working so hard separating yourself from God. So, when we're feeling connected to God and to each other, then everything's beautiful and all about love and oneness and all that. But I think when we talk about everyday world, I like to think of it as a big truth and with capital T and a small truth, the little t, and that's like everyday stuff is the small t truth, and it's the stuff that's eternal and connected that is the big T, that's the real truth. It's not so much about illusion as it's just that everyday stuff is in passing and it changes and all the time, and the things that are permanent don't change and they're forever. And so that is a bigger reality in the long term, but in everyday life, we're dealing with the small stuff, and it seems bigger than it is. It's when you are meditating and feeling the oneness, you can put it in perspective.
Well, and that's why the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, I think, was such a successful and such a bestseller. What was that, back in the 80s or long time ago? But, you know, the people really went after that book because, you know, I've always made this other thing. It's just like, people wear a lot of shoes with Velcro on now, but do you remember shoelaces? So you get up in the morning and you're tying your shoe and the shoelace breaks. And of course, the shoelace only breaks when you're late for work, it's raining, you know, blah, 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 of course. And of course, shoelaces never warn you. Everything's fine. And then one morning they just get up and you just get up and they just break. And a shoelace can completely wreck your day if you let it. On the other hand, you get up and some big disaster happens, you go, okay, it's a big disaster, I have to deal with it. It's little things like shoelaces that really, really get to us. And it's like the shoelace that breaks the camel's back, I suppose, you know? And it is, I mean, a shoelace is just a shoelace. And maybe that's another way to phrase it. Instead of saying it's an illusion or anything else, it's a house, it's a shoelace, it's a chair. It's not a life question. And yeah, your life is, obviously, your house is part of your life, but at the same time, it's a house. And you can decide what you want to do with it. And that's not always easy. I mean, there wouldn't be all these bazillion books written, all these classes and everything if it was easy. So I wrote out an affirmation. So bringing this all back now to denial and affirmation, and I realize, you know, with 55 minutes, we don't have a lot of time to really work with this. So I wrote a denial and an affirmation based on kind of what we were talking about, because what did I? Oh, I know where I put it. This came to me as I was writing this morning. It says, denial disempowers your old symbols and it empowers your new symbols. And you're not trying to change the situation, you're changing your own mind about it. So if you don't believe it, that's okay. Remember, those of you here last time, we talked about the fact that when you're doing an affirmation or denial, when you're saying there is no sickness in my body because you're trying to get over something, you're not believing that. You think you're lying to yourself. And then the second part of that is, I am healthy, whole, and perfect. And you don't believe that either because you know that the doctor just told you that, you know, whatever. So the whole process is about changing how you are thinking about something. And so this is one I wrote, and there's a place on there. We won't have time to do it tonight, but just play with it because, you know, writing denials is not as easy. I think a lot of you found out last week. Denials are not as easy, nearly as easy as affirmations. And I've also had some people say, but I don't want to think about the bad part of it. The thing is if you don't clear out that negative thinking, no matter, you can pile affirmation on top of affirmation, but it's, you know, you've got that negative feelings down underneath, and that needs to be cleared out. And so this is that process, is the denial and affirmation process. And so the denial part of it is the saying, this isn't true. This isn't reality. So I said, this was for someone with an addiction. There is no substance or habit that can run my life. There is no such thing as self-destruction. That's pretty bold. Then the affirmation would be, I am a being of light and pure health. I am a living symbol of the one true reality, and I now bring forth my true being. That is a denial and an affirmation. And a person probably starting from that point would have a lot of work to do, and they'd have to do that over and over to start changing their thinking and start thinking about it in another way. But you can know that it isn't the ultimate truth because it can be changed. So a person who has an illness or an addiction or some other thing going on in their life, if it can be changed, whoever the teacher is, they're going to tell you it's either a dream or illusion or whatever. It's malleable. It can be changed. You can be changed. Your thoughts can be changed. And there is that ultimate reality inside you that can't be changed.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How come I know all the answers and I don't do what I know is the correct thing to do? Like I know holding on is no good and it's best to let go and let God, or what? It's one of the terminologies. And yet, a lot of times I hold on and I hold on. And I'm just hurting myself and I hold on. I know this is not good to do this, but why do you do things that aren't good for you when you know that this is not what is the correct thing to do?
Is there anybody else in the room who has? It's called being human. You know, and again, if it were easy, nobody would be in this room. We'd be all out drinking whatever we like to drink, somewhere else. This is not easy. We're learning. Every time you do it, you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more, and it might not happen, again, quite as fast or as deeply or as extremely. And, it's like one of the ways I look at what progress we have made in my life is if something comes around again, because it will always come around again, I stop and go, oh, okay, last time this came around, I did this. This is what was going on. Oh, I did it better this time. I still got engaged. It still happened. I still, walked that path, but I didn't engage as deeply or as long, or it doesn't happen as often anymore. But I don't know of a person, there must be a couple people on the planet who probably can just walk through unscathed. The Dalai Lama has even made a comment once. I'm sure he's quite good at all of this, but he said that he was at a conference and he stayed in a hotel, and then he would have to walk by all these stores to get to the meetings. And this was where the Rolexes, and this was a high-end, all of these wonderful, sparkly, shiny things in the windows. And he said, even I, as I'm walking by, I'm starting to think, gee, that would be pretty. I would like to have that. We're human. We're here. We're having a human experience, and we're supposed to be engaged. We're here to be engaged in this life. Whether we buy into it at the negative level or at the more positive level is really kind of the issue, and that's why we're working on it. That's why we have these kinds of teachings. This is why we get up here and do this. Is why, why there's 80 billion, how many self-help books are there? Oh my goodness. It's because and it's partly we all think that there's something wrong with us. And if we just say, okay, I'm human today, because there's also this little thing that we're not always quite sure it's okay to be human, but that's what we are. We are human. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all there is for tonight. Thank you for coming. I'll get this format down a little bit. So this is a time for our love offering. And, love offerings are one of the coolest things we can do, really, because it is a way to, show appreciation. It's a way to increase your own prosperity by keeping things in circulation. And if it feels good, that is what you do, is you give and you support. And it is all in divine order. Now let us say our divine blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God. Thank you. 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 is pouring down. Love is pouring down. Let us stand and connect however we can here. Actually, I think you can go back and connect with Kathy back there. We can have a sort of circle. All right, Gordon, can you? Cool. Well, we're connected, and that's what's important, because we were never separated in the first place. The stick is not with us tonight. I guess I'm going to have to get one. Okay, let's take a deep breath. And together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And may the joys of the world go with you. Thank you for coming. There was more discussion last week. Well, because I had them try to write denials. And, oh, is it still? I'm still on.